No, I'm still here. You sure? Nothing today? Because I mean, you had nothing for me yesterday, and I heard you run the street. Aye, okay, that's fine. Thanks for nothing.
Does that work?
Take a guess.
Oh well, I just did.
Aye, well, I'm not going in today.
But you went in yesterday or the day before?
Aye, well, it's just apparently they're overstaffed. They're taking on everyone they can. There's nothing they can do.
Well, you need to go like somewhere else because all these bills, they've all piled up, and I don't know what we're supposed to do now.
Look, I've been applying for stuff. All right, all there is 0-hour contracts. They're all the same.
There can't just be 0-hour contracts.
Sadly, scenes like that are being played out in homes across the country. Workers on 0-hour contracts are reporting that they're struggling to survive. We've spoken to one young worker who's on a 0-hour contract, to members of the UK Parliament and to an active trade unionist. And when would you find out whether you were working the next day or not?
Usually just the night before, or sometimes 2.5 hours before. Call, email, or sometimes they would ring my house. I didn't complain really until I left, when I started complaining to my pals and that about it. More than likely you would have got sacked. Next was non-stop people getting sacked. In my 5 months there, I think I've seen at least 50 people go. 0 hours, that's so they think, oh, I get paid for 0 hours. But they don't, it's brutal. It'll ruin their social lives, it'll ruin relationships. They can barely go home sometimes. I had to sleep in next a few times overnight just because I knew I was working the next day or they were going to call me in 2 hours later, so I couldn't go home.
The latest figures from the Office for National Statistics show that there is a total of 779,000 people currently on 0-hour contracts. We also spoke to Richie Benton. Richie is a trade unionist. He's active in USDAW, the trade union that represents shop workers, many of whom are on 0-hour contracts. How can workers, particularly young workers, organise themselves to resist or oppose 0-hour contracts without making themselves targets for reduced hours or 0 hours?
Yeah. Well, it is very difficult, and that's where I think that the duty in some respects lies more with the existing organised trade unions to do that, and that's beginning to happen. There are efforts by unions, different unions in different companies, to begin to organise workers that are in that vulnerable position. And we've had just last week actually coordinated strike action by a few different groups of workers in these conditions, like McDonald's workers. It's only tiny handfuls so far, but McDonald's workers went on strike earlier this year. There was only about 40 of them in total involved down South Cambridge and the outskirts of London. And when they took that action, as a result of it beginning to spread like wildfire as an idea to take that action, where they joined the Bakers Union in this instance, and then were balloted in the proper legal sense, and took the strike action for a day. When they did that, McDonald's rapidly offered the biggest pay increase in their history, as I understand it, in order to try and prevent this idea of being unionised and of taking collective action and defending yourself.
So it's appropriate we're in Paisley looking at the conditions for working men and women today. We're meeting with Mary Black, MP for Paisley and Renfrewshire South, and we want to know what she thinks of employers using 0-hour contracts.
Effects of them are the reason that I hate them so much, and I don't use that word lightly. I think they're a horrible creation, and if there is genuinely cases where people need flexible working hours, I see no reason why an employer and an employee can't sit down and come up with a formal contract or a formal arrangement. We're able to do it in this office, so why can't anyone else? So I think the effects that we see coming through is, unfortunately, we catch people at the tail end when they've already suffered. Because if you take, like what I said at the start, where you literally can't organise your life, and when you take away organisation from someone, everything becomes chaotic. And quite often, as most people live their lives, we've always got stuff going on. So all it takes is the perfect wee storm for things to go wrong, and boom, that's your mental health away, boom, that's your physical health away. How are you going to get out this vicious cycle? Because you can't get a bloody job that's stable because you keep getting these 0-hour contracts. And then you find that other employers are saying, you've only had 0-hour contracts, I'm afraid you've not got enough experience. How are you supposed to win? There, to me, that shows the system's the problem, not the people. And where I would say the contracts are the problem, not the people.
Of course, not everyone opposes 0-hour contracts. There are supporters, particularly amongst the Conservative and Unionist Party. We spoke to Bill Grant. Bill is the MP for Ayr, Carrick and Cumnock. So from the perspective of yourself and of the UK government, do you think that 0-hour contracts overall are beneficial?
Yes, on 2 counts. They're beneficial to allow maybe a small business to thrive and flourish and expand to create further jobs down the line, but also gives flexibility to the employee who may not wish to have more than, say, on average 26 hours, maybe just 10 hours, flexibility around maybe childcare, round about caring for somebody else, round about their lifestyle. And you're not held to this. Flexibility is the key. If you want to work X amount of hours, you can do so. Your employer cannot force you to work more. But in many cases, there are people on 0-hour contracts would just like that wee bit more. And this government's looking to give them a bit more security. And if they can come toward to give an indication what the workload's going to be and the hours available to them. I think that's maybe a weakness in it, but this government's working to seek the support of employers to indicate to that individual, we'll have 20 hours next week, 15 the next, and maybe 26 the following. It's to give them a degree of certainty, but without damaging that very important thing of flexibility to allow the employee to flourish and the company to flourish.
The Trades Union Congress at its annual conference has just unanimously passed a resolution to introduce a 16-hour minimum working week for anyone who wants it. Yeah. You could opt out of it if you wanted it, but 16 hours minimum. Do you think that's workable, and do you think is that something you could support?
I think it's definitely something workable, and yeah, it's better than what's being offered just now. You know, any step in the right direction, I think, has got to be taken, especially given how negative the current political climate is. You know, we'll take what good we can get when it comes. But I think that's where the trade unions also have a job in that. I read an article, was it yesterday, a couple of days ago, where they were saying that a 4-day week is completely workable. That's the kind of conversations we should be having, because when we're now realising just how deep issues are, like mental health and things, and how they're all interlinked to usually the biggest thing for all of us, which is our job, is what we do day to day. So if we accept that they are intrinsically linked, then we can start to understand more and rebuild a society that actually supports people rather than, you know, puts them in that box or that box. So any steps to create more structure and to put the rights back onto the side of employees, I think is definitely got to be supported, because fundamentally that's how things like 0-hour contracts begin. It's when the ordinary people en masse aren't organised enough to stop it, and that's where you get these crooks coming in with, you know, terrible deals like this.
I could support a journey to that, but I wouldn't see an instant application of that. I think this government introduced a living wage from the minimum wage. We've seen an increase in the living wage. So yes, I would support a journey, but this instant overnight success, no, you need to work towards that, and we're working towards better conditions for those in any contract, but particularly so in 0-hours contracts, and we've went some way in that, and will continue to do so. But it's the democratic right of the trade unions to pursue that, and I don't have an issue with that. But in government, you have to balance. The trade unions are important players. They should be consulted and discussed and listened to. We also have to listen to the employers, to the employees, and you take the best of all three and take it forward. I don't think to take a single view is the right way forward. We need to bring their view and welcome their view and bring it together.
We contacted a number of employers who use 0-hour contracts. Unfortunately, most of them didn't even respond. 0-hour contracts are clearly having a major impact on workers across the country. If you want to have your say on the issue, please contact your local MP.